these are the four major benefits of a reverse mortgage. One is tax-free lump sum or steady income. So unlike your RIFs, your retirement income funds, or any other sources that you might have for investments, if you're taking it from, you know, your stocks or your dividends or anything like that, when you take it from a debt perspective or reverse mortgage, you don't have to claim that as income. It's tax-free. Now, one of the things that, oh, sorry, I didn't. Nancy and Liz and I were talking about earlier, when we're talking about using debt to supplement your retirement, those are tax-free. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a reverse mortgage. If you're still employed, you've got enough income to get approved for a home equity line of credit, that is technically still a way for us to be able to get access to liquidity from the net worth that you have on your home. Sorry, let me take a step back. My name is Ray. I'm a mortgage broker. We've got access to 88 lenders. They're not all reverse mortgage. We've got access to TD, Scotiabank, National Bank, BMO, and a few other lenders, including the chip mortgage companies, right? So that's the home equity or Equitable or Bloom. There's a lot more reverse mortgage companies out there. The benefit of pre-planning before you retire is that if you're able to support an approval for a home equity line of credit, it is less costly than a reverse mortgage. There are certain scenarios where reverse mortgage works, but there are certain scenarios that if you pre-plan ahead, we have other alternatives for you. Okay? Tax-free, it's on the reverse side, it's tax-free from an income tax perspective. It's the same with a home equity line of credit or any other mortgage. No mortgage payment. So a reverse mortgage doesn't necessarily, it doesn't require you to make monthly payments. It's capitalizing the interest cost into the mortgage amount. So the mortgage actually increases as time goes on. Okay? Retain ownership and control of your home. So if you're retired or non-retired, 55 years or older, you're sitting on a detached property, a bungalow in Mississauga. How much would a bungalow in Mississauga?
1.2.
1.2 grand. And you go, hey, you know what? I want to stay here. I want to update my home, or I want to give, you know, some money for my kids or adult kids, grandkids. Maybe you want to go to school. This is a way for you to access some liquidity, access some funds, some equity, and you can give a living inheritance. So subsidize your retirement by, you know, having access to those funds and go to those dream vacations that you always wanted to do. Again, access the equity without selling, so you get to stay in that home as well. Because there's no payments, it doesn't have to come out of, you don't have to fund it through your regular, you know, CPP or OAS or work pension that you currently have. Any questions before I move on to this?
So if you take the steady income, is that taxable?
So it's, when we say steady income, the reality is it's just dispersed every single month or every quarter or every year.
But it's not considered income by
It's not considered income.
CRA?
There's no
Please.
Because it's that, you paid for it with after tax dollars.
No.
Yeah, you did. You created the equity in your house with
Yeah, with
after tax dollars.
right.
So they're not gonna
Created
tax
the
it
equity in
in.
your home after tax dollars, sorry.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
You pay for your house with money from
Right.
your
Income.
job, your income.
That's been taxed already.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's why it's.
So you're-
So OAS can't claw back or anything
No.
based on
That's
something
right.
like this?
That's
Okay.
right.
This is technically, this is debt. So debt is not considered income.
Okay.
Sorry, Ann.
How do you set it up?
How do you set it up? A few different ways. We have to apply through, so you have to be 55 years or older. We'll apply through one of 3 or 4 reverse mortgage companies that we have in Canada. They will appraise the property to make sure how much the property is worth. And typically, depending on how old you are, you can borrow up to a certain percentage of the home value. So we're not doing 80% or anything like that, but it's a certain percentage based on the value. Sorry, go ahead.
How do the lending companies make their money?
Interest.
So is the interest payable as time goes by, or it's added at the cap?
It's added at the end. So they give us, like, obviously, it's always great for the individual getting the liquidity, but it became our practice to make sure that if there's any kids or dependents or anything like that, that they're somewhat clued in that there is a reverse mortgage. So if you're thinking, okay, my mom and my dad, they should have a home that's supposed to be free and clear because they've had it for the last 30 plus years,
Yeah.
technically we ask and say, hey, do you have anybody that you need to make sure that they inform because there is a reverse mortgage on it. Again, this is where for you to the current owner, you've got some benefits of it, but the reality is the benefits is there for you, but once you pass, it gets paid off. Yeah. It's not free money, they're making interest, yes.
This is alternatively there, so can I take out like a monthly income, within 1 month, I wanna take out $5,000. And then go back to my monthly
It's-
income.
No, it's scheduled. So it's technically we set up a schedule at the beginning. We can go back to the reverse mortgage lender and say, hey, we want another lump sum or we want to change the monthly draws
Yeah.
to another amount, but
Yeah.
it's set up.
That's an extra fee for doing that, or no?
It's like an annuity then, right? In a way.
I wouldn't wanna, because this is debt, not insurance or investments. So but it is technically drawn, it could be drawn every month, it could be drawn every quarter, it could be drawn yearly, or one big lump sum at the beginning.
Do the interest rates vary a lot, or could it change from year to year?
There's a term. So like a regular mortgage, there is a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year term. After the term is done, you can actually have fixed or variable as well. After the term is done,
Oh,
you get to renegotiate the interest rate as well. So given where we are in the market, and I think Heather and Tim talked about where where the market is and the volatility in the market is right now, we know we're kind of here in terms of what the interest rate is, and we hope that we peaked. So in the next 2 years, 3 years, the expectation is that from the forecasting from a lot of the big 6 banks economists, that the rates are eventually going to go down.
so you'd be smarter to sign up for a short term.
Exactly. So this is part of the strategy that we do. It's like, all right, let's say you do have the need for a reverse mortgage, and you set up a reverse mortgage. For all intents and purposes, we want to renew or renegotiate when the rates are lower.
Oh, okay.
So effectively, you can get a negotiated for 2 years or 3 years.
Is there a minimum
Is there a minimum?
amount? Like all the ads always do. You can hit half the cost of your house. Well, I don't need that much. Like, is there a
Yeah, like $20,000 or $25,000 depending on the lender.
How much?
20 or 25,000.
per year?
No, it
No.
could be the initial setup can be at 20 or 25,000 at the beginning, and then you'll have the reverse mortgage.
And what's the interest rate?
We're doing one right now at 7.14, it could be higher.
I've seen
Yeah.
8.
So that's why if you have the means to get into a HELOC or a home equity line of credit, you would go that route. Otherwise, not everybody's got big pensions, right? So if you wanted to give $1.2 million property and you need to access
Yeah,
$400,000, let's say.
yeah.
Well, technically, for a $400,000 mortgage today, I need to show at least, for a traditional lender, at least around $100,000 a year income. A pension income may not support that. If
Yeah.
you do, perfect, because that means we get to set up a regular mortgage. So we go to one of the bank lenders. Otherwise, technically, this is a good alternative. The only thing I have to show on a reverse mortgage is that you can afford the property tax, maybe the condo fee if there's a condo.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's minimal income is needed to get approved for a reverse mortgage. And technically, if you had some issues with credit history in the past, technical reverse mortgage will also be accessible from that perspective. Okay, not for everyone, so go ahead.
Is there a way out, or if I cut into money, is there a way to just close off the
Right,
whole thing?
right.
So you either sell, refinance out, or pay it out, or you pass.
So I try for 1 year, and let's say I inherit some money.
Yeah,
Can I pay off that money, which I thought I would be paying when I die.
But so the thing about reverse mortgage is that there is a period of time, typically 4 or 5 years, depending on the lender, that they'll charge you penalty if you pay it off.
Yeah, they're not gonna say, right.
That's based on the term, right? So if you get a 5-year term,
Right.
oh no, regardless of the term?
So you can get a 1-year term,
Yeah.
if you don't have, if you've never kept it for 5 years, you'll still be charged for that.
What's the maximum?
It really depends.
Mhm.
It's like depending on the rates that we got to time on stuff. It's I think it's 5 months interest for most.
They
And then
want you
it
to
goes
stay,
down,
I want you to leave,
the number of
yeah,
years you kept it.
So they're not gonna charge you, if you owe $100,000, they're not gonna add for 1 year, they're not gonna say, well,
Yeah.
get 5 years.
Yes.
We're charging you just on 5 years.
You're charging interest of 5 months interest. I think there's a schedule. I think it starts at 5
Term,
months.
okay.
If you have 4 years left out of the 5 years.
Right.
And then it goes down to like 2 months or 3 months after.
So short term is safer.
So, but there is, there's a term commitment for the mortgage and
Yeah.
a negotiated amount, but there's really a commitment to say, hey, I plan to have this for at least for the next 5 years. Otherwise, I'm exposing, you're going to be exposed to some penalty.
Okay. So there's a minimum.
Now, again, minimum age is 55. It's typically for your primary residence or a secondary property, so it's not applicable to a rental property. The minimum initial advance is $25,000.
Oh.
Income and credit, as I mentioned earlier, may not be as high element of getting an approval. They're portable, so if you decide to sell and move to another property, and all the title holders need to be on the reverse mortgage, and they all have to be 55 years of age or older. Yeah, and normally in terms of how we qualify how much you can get, it's typically the youngest of the applicants will trigger how much percentage you're eligible for.
Which potentially could be problematic on an estate planning if you decide to change ownership of your property into your children's name. You want to get a reverse mortgage.
Now, I know we do that pretty quick, but the reality is it's better to explain how or when it might be applicable. As I mentioned earlier, if you were working, if you've got great income, or if you have a co-signer, sometimes you've got, brother, sister, son, daughter that's willing to put their names onto the property, or you've already put their names on the property, we can get a traditional mortgage or a home equity line of credit. And if that's the case, reverse mortgage is not the product that you should be looking at. Now, for instances where you've been in the property for a while, streetsville property, worth 1.2 million, you've raised your family there, maybe most have gone out, maybe, you've got a scenario where maybe your son or daughter is still living with you. The home needs some minor work. We're not talking about tear down or build, but you need a few $1,000s. You go anywhere from $50,000, $100,000 to update the flooring, maybe the kitchen or anything like that. You don't have the means to, you don't have the investment savings, or you don't want to take out from your RIF or other investments. A reverse mortgage may work. Again, this is where CPP and OAS may be enough, because you only have to show that you can afford taxes. You can only have to show that and maybe some utility costs and stuff, right? So from those perspective, you do have the means to update your house, stay there, maybe give living inheritance to your kids and grandkids, as I mentioned earlier as well. Any other, lifestyle that you want. If you wanted to go to Europe because you haven't been, there at all. Hey, why sit on a $1.2 million property, zero mortgage, but you're living day to day in terms of your income, and not have the means to go do what you wanted to do? This could work, right? Again, not for everyone, because 7.14% interest rate is not cheaper than the regular traditional mortgage. If you're saying, hey, my pension income is really not enough for me to go and do the stuff that I wanna do, right? Love my kids, they all have their careers, they're all, you know, they all have their own, money to go basically fund for their own lifestyle. Maybe, you know, maybe I need some equity from there. This will give you access to funds. Any questions on that side? No? Current rate environment and forecast, and I mentioned it earlier, the reality is today, it looks like we've peaked where, to where the interest rate is gonna be. Inflation went down, last month in January numbers, to 2.9%, the target for Bank of Canada is 2%. So we're making our way there. Previous month for December was 3.4. So inflation rate is the reason why the Bank of Canada were increasing all those times that we had since 2022, right? So the fact that we're starting to see that go down, the forecasted numbers may be anywhere from 2 to 2.5% decrease in total for the next 2 years. So into 2024, into 2025. That's why when I was talking to you guys about, you know, types of mortgage, 2 years or 3 years is a good term that we're looking at right now. Those are forecasts. A lot of people forecast, a lot of people have opinion. They're not always right, right? But at least it gives us an idea that that's the tendency. That's what we believe it's going to be. We believe that the rates are going to go down. Maybe there were people saying as early as April. Now it looks like people are saying around June or later. Okay. If you're interested, obviously call my number. Scott will give you. I already did the giveaway. So you guys already had it. Any questions or anything like that? Because I can talk forever. Please.
What happens to the value of your property at the end of the term?
What happens to the value? So the beauty of it is that, as Scott was showing earlier, as time goes on, typically in the long term, not in the short term, property value increases. Technically, the property value increase is still your equity.
Right.
So if the balance is $100,000 plus the interest that accumulated,
Right.
and your property went from 1.2 to 2 million, there's an additional $800,000 there.
Right.
Technically, when you pay it off, that's your equity that goes to you. If the pricing actually did go down and blip, you get to keep it. They don't call the reverse mortgage. That's part of the feature of the reverse mortgage. So let's say you initially got $500,000 and price of home went down to $500,000 or less. You get to stay there. The interest gets accumulated. Technically, that's part of pricing the risk that a reverse mortgage company takes on. So if the price of the home goes down and even lower than the amount of capital principal that you have there, you get to stay there as long as you want.
And then what?
When you pass, you sell it, or you refinance it, that's the only time that the reverse mortgage can get.
It's not gonna go lower than what
So you still
they're gonna be careful.
pay it off and pay off what you receive.
So let's say, so if the question is,
Yeah.
if the balance of the mortgage is the reverse mortgage is 500,000, and your value of your property, let's say, went down to 400,000, that's all they get, the 400,000, then you move on. Mind you, there's a reason why they manage their, how much they lend you on a reverse mortgage. They're not 80-90% of the value of the property.
Right.
That's, like I said, they've taken those into account, but technically a feature of the reverse mortgage is that you keep it as long as you want, and even if the price of the home dips down to lower than the current principal balance, that's all it is, that they get whatever's left over.
Yeah.
Can it transfer? Like say, you've got the reverse mortgage, you pass away, your child who's gonna move in is over 55, can it transfer? Okay,
No,
so it would have to be sold, wouldn't it, to be paid off?
Yeah.
Well, it could be transferred, like you said, and daughter gets a traditional mortgage based off the reverse mortgage.
Okay.
when you pass away, and the company wants their money back or whatever, is there then penalties that come into it because you're in year 2 of your 5-year agreement, or is it just cut off clean, here's what you owe us?
That's good.
And I guess part of that question is, does it become a burden on your estate, or is it pretty cut and dry? You owe us this much money plus some interest?
So,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it's part of the estates. Yes, potentially there's penalty depending on if we're, remember the 5-year guarantee there?
Sure.
Is it, sorry, the other question was, is it part of the estate, is there any penalty?
Well, is the penalties cut off when you die, or is there, I'm dead, but I still owe 2 years kind of thing?
Not that, so it's based on the penalty, based on how many, it's no, so you're not collecting for the, you're not collecting interest for the next 2 years.
No, right.
But the moment that you, let's say there's 2 years left, it might be equivalent to 2 weeks, or sorry, 2 months worth of interest penalty that might be added on to it. I believe most are around, they'll give you around 4 to 6 months to actually settle the reverse mortgage. So it's not forever, but it's not immediate either.
And from the estate's point of view, is this done pretty quickly, or does it tie things up for 6 months, you know, until the rest of my estate can be dispersed, or is it potentially done pretty quickly?
Depends on how probate is,
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Exactly. So technically they have an expectation on when they want it to be paid off, but it just becomes part of the estate. Somebody has to be able to
If
sell.
there's money issues, you always do a pre-distribution on an estate. You don't have to wait until like everything's done to do a distribution on the estate. You can do partial distributions. So that if people need cash flow, and as long as you manage, potential costs associated and all that.
So, like I said earlier, I mean, a reverse mortgage is a great tool, but it's not a tool for every cases, it's not a tool for everything, right? So if you are in that scenario where you go, I'm house rich and liquidity is a little light, or you've got a $1.2 million bungalow in Streetsville, and you're counting your dollars every single month because I can't have enough groceries. I can't have enough. I don't know. I had a client before that had a specific alcohol budget every single month and it's sitting on. But that could happen, right? So this is where you go. Listen, everybody's sitting on a lot of equity on their home for the last 4 or 5 years, or even longer. Right, so if it's longer, the more you actually for equity you have. But the reality is, from a day to day, I was going to say, Monique, you know what? You've got 1 glass of wine this week because you gotta make it last for the next month. You go, well, if you're sitting on a $2 million property, I don't think that's necessary. Is a reverse mortgage the right for you? We go through the process of figuring out whether we can do it through the traditional mortgage way. But if we go through it through the reverse mortgage way, there's no shame in it. Because the reality is, you've got tons of equity, you want to live your life in retirement comfortably, happy, healthy, all those things that we talked about, right? If it's close to your family, perfect. If it helps you to fulfill your purpose, great. The financial component of it obviously kind of ties into everything. I mean, reason we call it, 4 pillars. You take one of those pillars away, being on the financial side, it's hard for that desk or chair to stand up, right? So, and sometimes a reverse mortgage is the one that actually helps you live a great retirement life.
Can I share 2 stories? Okay. So I have 2 unique situations where reverse mortgage works. So I have a client who found out they have a terminal illness. They want to stay in their house. They don't, they're going to have some care come in, but it's going to cost money. Plus, they also want to help both of their children buy properties. For them, reverse mortgage works because the remainder of the equity is going to, the spouse doesn't want to stay in the house because it's too big. So they're using their reverse mortgage to gift some money to their children to help them buy properties, as well as to use the last year of their life to go on a trip that they've always dreamed of that they didn't have the money to do. Because it's a finite time period, that's where potentially, it makes sense for reverse mortgage. The second success story, and for one of my clients, her husband passed away. That was when interest rates were low, and they had a line of credit that they were paying off, and they were thinking, eventually they were gonna downsize the property and move into, there's a retirement community condo, rental building that they wanted to move into. He passed away, and interest rates started to go up, and she now, because she has lost his old age security, his CPP, and 40% of his pension, she can't afford the line of credit, so she basically is just taking out more debt, credit cards, and she finally got to a point where she has, basically had no money. So what we did is we did a reverse mortgage to pay off all her debts, gave her $50,000 to go on a couple trips that she wanted to do and take her grandkids, and then we took $100,000 and we bought an annuity, which now she knows she's got a finite time because in 5 years she's on a waiting list for this retirement place where she wants to go. The reverse mortgage has reduced all of her costs. The annuity is giving her a steady income stream at a rate of about 8.5% on 100,000 for her lifetime. So now, if she sells the property in 5 years, she's got the equity, but she also has that annuity payment for life. So that's where, two scenarios where it makes sense. So again, it's really just, understanding the options, and I think that's what, it's not one